Hi, I'm Sandra Hawkins, and this demo is going to show you all about classes and objects in Java. I'm breaking these demos into three parts. The first one will be classes and objects and methods. The second part, I look at constructors and static variables, and then another third part for looking at the toString method. If you've been following me all along, I had a package or a project here called All Code. I've renamed it using right-click refactor rename to Java Basics, and I'm going to create a new Java project here and call it Java 00 because the next set in my next playlist is all on object orientation in Java. So Java 00 next. I'm avoiding modules at the minute. I'll cover those in a later demonstration, and click on Finish. And just to keep all my code organized, I'm going to put in here a new package. So this will be called classes and objects. And in there, I'm going to create a bank account class. So start off with a new class, bank account. Now, to use this, I'm going to create a separate class as well. I'm just going to pop it in here. So another new class that's going to be where my main method is for testing out this code. So main for bank account, and now I'm going to check on the checkbox there for main. Okay, so firstly, what is a class? A class, one description, is a template for creating objects. So what does that mean? My bank account, I'm going to put in here that every bank account has a name, like the person's name that owns it, an account number, and a balance. So it kind of defines how every bank account is going to be. So this is like a template for creating actual bank account objects. So each bank account that I create from this template will belong to, say, me, Sandra, or another one will belong to John, or another one will belong to Mary. But the class itself doesn't hold any of that specific information. It just defines how or what each object is going to have in memory. There's no memory set aside for this bank account class, but when you use it, which means instantiate it or create an object from it, then the memory will be set aside for each object that you create. So I'm going to show you how that happens. So firstly, what I'm going to do is set up member variables. These define what every bank account that I create is going to have. So, and the member variables are usually private, and I'll explain about that in a second. So I'm going to set up a name, somebody's name for the bank account. I'm going to set up here private an int for the account number. And the last one, a double for the balance. So every bank account that I create using this class or using this template will have a name, an account number, and a balance. Now, the reason that these are private, I'm going to create methods below to allow access to each of these variables. The methods that I put in are going to be public, so it's only the methods that are going to be available outside of this class. These member variables are not going to become available. Now, I'm going to cheat and change this for a bit just to demonstrate what I mean there. Now, I'm going to switch across to my main method and just show you how that bank account class is going to be used. So in main, and just a little thing up here as well in Eclipse, the asterisk is there. That means that hasn't been saved yet. I keep pressing Control S. So my bank account, I press Control S to save it so that it'll be recognized from my main. So to use that class or that template, I use the name of the class, so bank account. Now I'm making up a variable to refer to that object in memory. So I'll call it BA bank account 1. And the syntax that I use equals new. Give me new memory for a bank account. I've clicked Control Space there so that I get that autocomplete list. And I have bank account there and round brackets there for that called a constructor. I'll be covering constructors now in the next demonstration. We'll leave that out for a moment. Now, if I do BA1 dot, that will give me access to any members, public members, or methods, variables or methods that are in the other class. Firstly, there's a lot in there. You can see lots from the object class. That's because any class that you create is a child of object, and it will inherit loads of those methods. I'll be looking at the toString method there in the third demo that I do on this. So BA1, I have access to the account number. Now, this isn't good, and the reason I've access to that account number and not to the name or the balance is because I've made the account number public, which is bad. The reason that is bad is I can say, oh, account number, okay, I will just give it any random value there at all. I don't want that to happen. Okay, that didn't work because it's now too large for an int. Just decrease it a little bit. Now, that's bad because this might be outside of the range of possible values for account numbers. If all account numbers have to start with a 1 and they have to have 8 digits, it's not good if somebody can assign that value directly. So I'm going back to my bank account class. Public member variables is bad because they can be given values that might be outside of range or invalid. But this needs to be kept private. The reason that it's private then, it is called encapsulation. The data, this private data is kept hidden outside of the class, and you must go through the public methods that are in the class. Now, what do these methods look like? And one more thing, I'm going to hit save here on that. I'm going to flick across now to my main. Account number is now private, and now it won't compile. I don't have access to it. So that's how it should be. So that's bad. Now, back to my account class. So what way does it look then? There are now methods, so if we call them member methods. I'm not too keen on that name. I'll probably change it. So we have, I'm going to call them accessor methods. Accessor methods. So these are methods that allow you to set values to the member variables or retrieve those values. So they're often called get and set methods, or the two of them combined are accessor. And I think it's actually ASS. That looks better. Okay, so say the set methods are public. They don't return anything. For instance, the set name will be called the name, method for setting the name, set name. It takes in a member or data type of the same type, so a string, and it takes in the value to set it. And what it does is, now, I deliberately have the member variable the same name as this parameter. So if what I need to do to get access to the member variable, I need to say this.name, this is the member variable, equals whatever value was passed into this method. So right inside the equals first, whatever value is passed in gets assigned to the member variable for this particular object that we're talking about right now. I'm going to go over to main. I'm going to get rid of that line of code there now. I can't access the account number directly. So BA1 dot, what have I got? Set name. Who owns this bank account? Sandra Hawkins. So that's how I pass in a value. Now I'm going to draw a little diagram here. I'm just going to pause while I draw a little diagram just to say one. Okay, here's my little diagram. So BA1, that is a reference variable that refers to a bank account object in memory. When you create a bank account object, it will get a copy in memory of whatever the member variables are. There are 3. There'll be memory set aside for a string, an int, and a double. So I've just drawn these: string called name, account number, and balance. They will get default values. So the default value for a string is null. It means no object has yet been assigned. Count number is an int, that's 0, and balance is double, 0.0. This line here, BA1.setName, passing the value Sandra Hawkins into the set method. Sandra Hawkins will be passed in. It will take Sandra Hawkins and assign it to this object that we're currently talking about, this object's name. The one that I'm currently talking about in main is BA1's name. So that will take Sandra Hawkins and change the name there to Sandra Hawkins. So that's what happens. Now, I'm going to go into my class. I'm going to type up, just pause this while I type up the other methods, and then I will explain them to you. Okay, I've typed in the rest of the methods that I'm going to use in this first part. So I have set name and a get name. They allow access outside of this class to the name member variable. I've put in a set account number and a get account number. Likewise, they allow access to that private member variable outside of this class. So the set account number takes in an account number and it does a little bit of checking to see that it's not below, is that 100,000 or 100 million? It's not below 8 digits anyway. So I have a range check here to make sure that it's in between those two values. If it's too low or too high, there's a message printed out. If it's within the right range, I'm allowing whatever value is passed in to be assigned to this current object's account number. So if we think of that as the current object I've created, we'll call it BA1, that account number. If I want to see that the account number has been set, I would call get account number, and it would give me back access to that member variable. Also for the balance, I have 3 methods for the balance. I have a get balance method, which will simply return the member variable, and I have a deposit and a withdraw method. Deposit takes in an amount and it adds that amount onto the balance. So right hand side of the equals. Whatever the balance was, add the amount on, and that gets assigned back to the balance. The withdrawal method, it takes in an amount, but the first thing it does is check that the amount you've passed in is the same as or greater than the balance. Well, then you can take out some money, so it'll be taken off the balance. This minus equals here, that's a shortcut for balance equals balance minus amount. So balance minus equals amount. So it's a little shortcut operator. And if the balance is not the same or greater than the amount, it will go down to the else and say, sorry, insufficient funds, you have a balance of, and then this is using printf, percentage point 2, we'll take the value here balance, slot it in where the percentage is, and point 2f, round it to 2 decimal places, and f means it's a floating point number, so a double or a float. And finally I have get balance. Now, just to test some of this out, so back to my main. What else do I have access to here? BA1 dot set account number. So now that I pretty much think is too big. BA1 dot deposit some money. Let's put in 500. Now, if I run this code, nothing prints out because I don't have any print statements. So what I want to do is just print out here system out. Let's see, name is, and concatenate on there BA1 dot get name. And that again. Let's look at the balance. Balance is, and concatenate on there BA1 dot get balance. And finally, the account number. Now, just to keep with, I'm missing a closing round bracket there. And just to print out there the account number. Is 1.get account number. Now, okay, so when I run this, you can see that I input an incorrect account number, and because I have that error checking in the set method, it's giving me that message there. So when you look at the account number underneath, you can see that the balance is 0. So what I've done here is I've created a new account number, or a new bank account. I've called the set method for the name, passed in an account number that was invalid, so it didn't actually set that. It stayed the default of 0, and I have deposited some money. So one more little test here. So be on my object referenced by BA1 dot, I'll go to withdraw 400, and after that I want to print out the new balance, and concatenate onto that. So on my bank account object referenced by BA1 dot get balance, and run that program now. You can see that the balance has decreased by 400. Okay, so that is my bank account class. The member variables are kept private, so that's to enforce encapsulation, that data is hid from outside of the account, outside of the class. And you have to go through all of these public methods to either change one of the member variables or to retrieve one of the member variables for you. So all of these methods, member methods that work on the only work on the member variables. Okay, and that is it. Now, if anybody noticed that I had to go and reinstall the whole Eclipse there because it didn't reference the JDK in my new project, but when I reinstalled Eclipse, it did work. So that was an update that went a little bit wrong there yesterday.